Welcome back to Scary Moo, the channel that dares to unbox the unknown, stare straight into the abyss, and drag what we find back into the flickering candlelight, for your viewing pleasure. Tonight, we're sharing something that's been haunting us ever since it arrived at our doorstep, wrapped in brown paper stained with something that looked too much like old blood to dismiss. We opened a package that has unleashed something horrifying, something that did not want to be disturbed. And now, we're inviting you to witness the terror with us. But consider yourself warned. Some boxes are better left unopened. It all started with an email, anonymous, chilling, and full of riddles. "Will you open what others have sealed?" it asked. "Will you let the darkness out?" I should have ignored it, blocked the sender, maybe even called the police. But curiosity is a wicked thing, and here at Scary Moo, we have a taste for the forbidden. So, we replied, and a week later, the package arrived. It was heavier than it looked, bound with twine so tight it cut into the cardboard. There was no return address, only a crude symbol scorched into the side. A circle, filled with jagged lines like a spider's web. The package reeked of damp earth and rotting leaves, like it had been buried and dug up again. By the time we brought it inside, the air in the room was thick, oppressive, and the shadows seemed to move with a mind of their own. We waited until night to open it, of course. Because horror prefers the dark, and so do we. Inside, there was no bubble wrap, no packing peanuts, just a single, ancient wooden box. It looked handmade, the wood blackened with age, and the lid carved with the same web-like symbol. At first, we hesitated. Something about the box radiated wrongness. Our hands shook as we touched it, a cold, electric tingle crawling up our arms and settling in our spines. And then we lifted the lid. The stench that hit us was overpowering. Mold, copper, something animal. But inside, instead of valuables or trinkets, we found a stack of yellowed paper, drawings, scrawled in a child's hand, but with a violence and detail that no child should ever know. There were crude figures with hollow eyes, limbs bending at impossible angles, mouths stretched open in silent screams. Shadows lurked in the corners of every drawing, dark as spilled ink, watching, waiting. But it wasn't just the images that disturbed us. It was the feeling, the undeniable, suffocating certainty that something had been waiting for us inside that box. Something that was now awake. That night, the nightmares began. I dreamt of the figures in the drawings, only they weren't drawings anymore. They were real, clawing their way out of paper, dragging themselves into the room. Their eyes were black pits, endless and hungry. Their mouths opened impossibly wide, wailing in voices that sounded like children crying and animals dying, all at once. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, with the taste of earth and metal on my tongue. I wasn't the only one. Every member of the Scary Moo crew who had touched the box reported the same thing. Nightmares that felt more real than waking life. Whispers in the darkness. The sensation of being watched, even when alone. We tried to brush it off at first. Maybe it was just our imagination, fed by the creepy package and the drawings. But then the hauntings began. It started with the lights, flickering, dying, then bursting back on with a pop and a sizzle. Our phones wouldn't hold a charge, and every recording we tried to make was corrupted with static and strange, garbled voices. Shadows grew longer, darker, and seemed to slither across the floor when no one was looking. One morning, we found muddy footprints leading from the room where we'd opened the box, all the way to the front door. But none of us had been outside. The footprints were small, child-sized, and they reeked of that same earthy stench. Still, we tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was pranksters, or maybe we'd tracked in the mud ourselves. But that hope died the night we heard the laughter. It was just past midnight. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then, from the room with the box, we heard it, childish giggling, high-pitched and broken, echoing down the hallway. It grew louder, closer, until it sounded like it was right outside the bedroom door. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. When we opened the door, there was nothing there, except for another drawing, pinned to the wall with a rusty nail. This one was different. It was of us, drawn in the same childish hand, but unmistakable. We were standing around the open box, faces twisted in terror, black shapes looming behind us. In the corner of the paper, in blood-red crayon, someone had scrawled, "You let them out." We tried to get rid of the box. We tried to burn it, but the flames refused to touch it. We tried to bury it, but when we returned, it was back on the table, the lid slightly ajar, as if something inside was trying to escape. Desperate, we reached out to an expert in occult artifacts. She took one look at the box and turned pale. She told us the symbol was a binding mark, an ancient sigil used to trap spirits, or worse, things that were never human at all. By opening the box, we had broken the seal. The nightmares, the hauntings, the drawings that seemed to multiply every night, they were all signs that the entities once trapped within were now free. We asked if there was a way to reverse it, to send them back. She shook her head. Once the box is opened, it can never be closed again, she whispered. Your only hope is to appease them. Or run. But you can't run from a curse. Not when it follows you into your dreams, your waking hours, your every shadow. The hauntings escalated. Doors slammed themselves shut. Objects moved on their own, sliding across tables, crashing to the floor. We found more drawings, scattered everywhere, tucked into books, slipped under pillows, taped to mirrors. Each one more grotesque than the last. The figures in the drawings began to change, to become more detailed, more real. Their eyes seemed to follow us, their mouths twisted in knowing smiles. One night, we heard scratching from inside the walls. At first, it was faint, like the scuttling of rats. But it grew louder, more insistent, until it sounded like fingernails clawing at the plaster, desperate to get out. We pressed our ears to the wall and heard whispers, children's voices, chanting in a language we didn't recognize, but understood all the same. A promise of suffering, a warning, or perhaps, a curse. Sleep became impossible. Every time we closed our eyes, we saw the black-eyed children crawling from their paper prisons, dragging their twisted limbs across the floor, whispering our names. We became gaunt, hollow-eyed, afraid of the dark, afraid of the light, afraid of the silence that always came before the laughter. And that laughter became a constant companion. It echoed from empty rooms, drifted up from the basement, sometimes even crackled through the static of our phones. It was mocking, gleeful, hungry. Desperate for answers, we dug deeper into the box's origins. We scoured the internet, old archives, even reached out to forums dedicated to cursed objects and haunted artifacts. The stories we found were chillingly similar. In 1973, a family in rural Maine received a package just like ours. Within weeks, they reported hauntings, drawings that appeared on their walls, voices in the night, mysterious accidents. The family vanished without a trace, their house left abandoned, the box found sealed in the attic, waiting for its next victim. In 1989, a group of college students opened a similar box during a séance. One by one, they went mad, driven to violence or suicide by the nightmares that plagued them. The last survivor claimed the box, ate her friends, trapping their souls inside the drawings. Every account ended the same way. The box could not be destroyed, and anyone who tried to get rid of it found it returned, always a little more worn, a little darker, as if feeding on the fear and misery of its owners. We realized, with growing horror, that we were just the latest chapter in a story older than we could imagine. And the box was hungry. By now, the drawings had multiplied to hundreds. Some were new, some old, their paper brittle and yellowing, but all of them depicted the same thing: humans tormented by shadowy, monstrous figures. In one, a man was shown being pulled into a wall by dozens of black hands. In another, a woman with her eyes scratched out screamed as something crawled from her mouth. The worst ones, though, were the self-portraits, drawn in grotesque, nightmarish detail, always surrounded by the same shadows, always with the box at our feet. We tried to document everything, but our footage was always corrupted, our photos blurred by strange, pale faces that shouldn't be there. Our voices were replaced with static, or with whispers that didn't belong to any of us. One night, things reached a breaking point. The house was colder than usual, the air heavy with the scent of decay. We huddled in the living room, too afraid to sleep, when the lights died, plunging us into darkness. The giggling started again, louder and closer than ever, echoing from every corner. Then, footsteps, soft, shuffling, like bare feet on wood. We grabbed flashlights, but the beams barely cut through the gloom. And then we saw them, shadowy figures like those in the drawings, crawling from the walls, their eyes hollow, their mouths stretched open in silent screams. They moved toward us, slowly, inexorably, their bodies jerking with every step. We ran, tripping over furniture, desperate to escape. But every door led back to the same room, the room with the box. It was as if the house itself had warped, trapping us inside its walls, just like the figures in the drawings. In the center of the room, the box sat open, and inside, the stack of drawings seemed to pulse, as if breathing. The laughter crescendoed, shrill and maddening, as the shadow children reached for us, their fingers cold and sharp as knives. And then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The lights flickered back on, the shadows vanished, and the box was closed, the lid sealed tight. We were shaken, terrified, but alive. For now. But the curse lingers. The box sits in the corner, silent, but we can hear it whispering, calling out to us in our dreams. The drawings still appear, more detailed and lifelike with each passing day. Sometimes we catch glimpses of the shadow children in the corner of our eyes, watching, waiting. We've tried everything to break the curse, to end the nightmares, but nothing works. The only thing we know for sure is that the box cannot be destroyed, cannot be escaped. It is a hungry thing, feeding on fear, on suffering, on curiosity. And it always finds a new victim. So, if you ever receive a mysterious package, sealed with an ancient symbol, reeking of earth and decay, do not open it. Do not touch it. Do not even look at it for too long. Because some boxes are prisons, and some prisons are hungry. And if you hear laughter in the darkness, if you find drawings that you don't remember making, if you feel eyes watching you from the shadows, remember our story. Remember the box. And pray that it never comes looking for you. Thank you for joining us tonight on Scary Moo. If you value your sanity, think twice before messing with the unknown. But if you're just as drawn to the darkness as we are, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our haunted channel, and hit the bell so you never miss another tale of terror. If you have your own stories of cursed objects, haunted packages, or unexplained nightmares, share them in the comments below. Misery loves company, after all. Sleep tight, if you can. And remember, some doors, once opened, can never be closed again.